Well, hello marketers. Welcome to week 4 of the 90 days program. Today we will speak about the super exciting topic, copywriting. And I know for some it sounds like a dull topic, but according to many, you are only one great sales letter away or sales copy away from fame and fortune. And I don't know about fame, but definitely a great sales copy makes all the difference, whether the visitors to your site will buy something or just surf away, or they sign up for your offer or not. And I give you a bonus tip right now here, because I'm afraid I will forget it. And Arfa is leading today's call, so I don't want to forget this little bit of cool information. If you put on your site a little box that says somewhere around the top somewhere, tip of the week, and then you put the start of the tip, and ideally it should start with something powerful, like so they know that this is, I really want to know this tip, so they have to click on it. But anyway, that will kind of ensure that they come back week after week. So you have to come up with strategies how to quote-unquote lure back site visitors and maybe bookmark your site. So that's just a little secret that I didn't put in my notes, but I remembered this morning and wanted to share with you. Now I will let Arfa introduce herself.
Okay, hello everyone. As you know, my name's Arfa Saira Iqbal. I'm co-presenting with EG today on copywriting because that's exactly what I do. I'm a professional direct response copywriter, and I'm also a marketing consultant. I've been doing this for about a year, but I've actually been trained by one of the top copywriters in the UK. His name's Paul Hancock, and he's an exceptionally great mentor and teacher, and hopefully next year we should be doing some collaboration work. But for now, I'm going to give you guys a crash course on how to tweak your own copy so you can convert more clicks to customers. So I'm ready when you are, EG. You can move on to the first slide. Okay, first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to just go into a basic introduction of what copywriting is, and then I'm going to go into the various elements of copywriting a bit more in depth. The purpose of copywriting, it's salesmanship in print. What your basic aim is to sell any product or service through the use of the written word, or it can be through digital media. It can be adverts on TV, radio adverts, anything. The whole aim is you're selling something, and obviously you're trying to get your prospect to take some form of action, whether that's to actually ring you or to opt into your list. There's lots of different reasons why you actually need to get them into your sales funnel. We talked about sales funnels last week, so this is a really nice add-on from there. But the end benefit is always to make more money. If you have poor copy, you're going to get a poor response rate, which means that you're not going to get people clicking onto your links, and that means little or no sales and unfortunately no money in your pocket. However, if you have really good copy, and it does have to be coupled with good marketing though, so that is an important thing which I forgot to add to the slide, but I will mention it here. You have to have good marketing strategies with your copy. The two sort of go hand in hand. You'll get high response rates and hopefully more money. And the way I like to look at copywriting is you need to keep it simple, very, very short and simple. If you start overcomplicating things, you lose your customer, and that's the essence of good copywriting, is to always keep things simple. Okay, what are the elements of great copy? There are several elements of really good copy. You don't have to have all of them, but we'll talk about more about these in a bit more depth in a second, but just to sort of rattle them off, there's pre-headlines, which is a small section of text which goes before the main headline. Then you have your main headline, which is, it has to be an attention-grabbing headline. You have sub-headlines, which are smaller versions of headlines, and they're also to attract attention. You've got your actual body copy, which is explaining more about your offer or your service or your product or whatever it is that you're talking about. You do need to outline the problem, and you need to introduce the solution, because you need to alert these two things to enable you to elicit the best response. Benefits: if your copy is not benefit driven, you're not going to sell anything, because people always want to know what are the greatest benefits for them. The price and the guarantee, these are also incredibly important elements of great copy. If you get these two wrong, no matter how well your copy is written, your copy will actually fail. And at the end, you do need a strong call to action. So we're going to talk about these in detail now. So starting with pre-headlines. A pre-headline comes before the main headline, and the general purpose is to qualify the prospect. Now, what do I mean by qualify the prospect? If you're, say, for example, you have a product which is targeted to a particular group, when people come to your site, you don't want just anybody looking at your sales page, because it's not going to appeal to everybody. You're supposed to have a very targeted group of people that you're selling that specific product or service to. So what you would do is you would include something like attention. If it's aimed at health coaches and consultants, it would be attention health coaches, consultants and trainers. So anybody reading that would instantly know that that's who's being targeted, and anybody else, they'll just click away. So which is great, and it's a simple way to ensure the intended person is reading your message. You don't have to have them. I like to have them on copies where it is an incredibly targeted product, and I know many of you are coaches and you will have a very specific group, so always best to sort of stick that in there. Your main headline, it needs to be attention grabbing. When I mean attention grabbing, when you come to a page, it's really literally got to stop you dead in your tracks. If it fails to grab your attention, you're not going to read it. Nobody else is going to read it. So if you're the ideal prospect and you come to the page and you have a boring headline, people are just going to click away. There's nothing to excite. There's nothing to compel. You always think like the prospect when you're writing these. If the prospect doesn't actually emotionally connect with the headline, you totally and utterly lost them. As a general rule, and this is what all good copywriters do, they always write the headline last. And when you're writing, remember one simple rule, and this goes for any piece of copy you do, whether it's a squeeze page, whether it's an autoresponder or a sales letter. Always remember the golden rule. Prospects will buy an emotion and they will justify it with logic later. And obviously when you get all these elements in place, it will give you a very strong piece of copy. So we're going to have a look at some examples. The best headlines are the ones that make you curious. So it could be something that asks you a certain question, encourages you to sort of read on further. It gives a key answer or solution to the customer's worst problem, or it gives the key benefit of the product. Now, a good rule of thumb, especially if you are less experienced or if you're starting off, is always pick the biggest benefit of your product or service and use that in your headline. I don't ever recommend trying to get clever by, being vague or, trying to play on words. Unless you really know what you're doing, it rarely works, and you will actually lose your prospect. Always be precise. And if you can, you quantify the exact results. So, for example, if you have a particular product which is going to put a specific amount of money in your pocket, mention the exact results. Don't just say, this is going to make you a lot of money. You actually need to say, this is how I banked, and then put in however much money it is. So always give exact results wherever you can. Example headlines. I've just taken a very simple one. This is from one of a product that I actually created myself. This is how I started off. So the premise of the product it was a guide that helps the baby sleep through the night. So if I started off with help your baby sleep through the night, it's quite boring. It's not really attention grabbing. Okay, fair enough. I know what it needs to say, but I need to make it a little bit more enticing, and like I said, you need to quantify with actual figures where you can. So if my product is helping a baby sleep 12 hours through the night, I will change the headline to how to get your baby sleeping 12 hours through the night. But it's still, for me, not compelling enough. What you need to do is you need to try and put in the target prospect's worst problem, and that is, they're fearing sleepless nights. As a new parent, what do you fear the most? You fear the sleepless nights. So this is what I've put in. Fed up of sleepless nights, and it's a question. Get your baby sleeping 12 hours through the night. Okay. Now it's actually looking a lot better, but we can actually make it even more so better. Okay. Try and think of all the problems. It's not just a problem of you sleeping through the night. It's also, what are the problems that it's causing? So, for example, fed up of sleepless nights, stress no more, and end the agony of sleep deprivation, because obviously it causes headaches. You're lethargic, you're tired, you're not functioning properly during the day. So that is hitting more on a sort of emotional level there. And then, we're carrying on by getting your baby sleeping 12 hours through the night quickly and easily. So we're saying not only are you able to get your baby sleeping 12 hours through the night, but you can do it quite quickly as well. And now I want to actually sort of tighten it up a little bit more and quantify it a bit more. If you're able to do so, you can. This technique doesn't always work with every single headline that you'll come up with, but it's a good way. You just try and keep going as much as you possibly can. Fed up of sleepless nights, stress no more, and end the agony of sleep deprivation for both you and your baby by getting your baby sleeping 12 hours through the night in as little as 7 days. Now, I don't know about you, but if you're a new mother or a new father, if you were to read that compared to the first headline that I put up there, you'd probably be rushing to hit that buy it now button. And that's because it's playing on your emotions, it's hitting all the hot buttons of the target prospect and really driving that home. So that's just an example of how you'd work your way through a headline.
Let me interject for a moment here. So you guys, you can see a formula here, and jot that formula down. You can see the problem. You can state the problem plus a possible solution, a suggested solution, and then put a time on it, a time limit on it. That's very powerful, because help your baby sleep through the night, that's great, but will that happen this week, or will it happen by age 12? We don't know. Yeah. So it's very powerful when you put there a time limit in as little as 7 days.
Yeah, always try and be as exact as possible.
And sometimes it's enough if you just state the benefit plus the time limit if you want to keep it short. And you can put the problem, you can put it as a pre-headline, and then as a main headline you can put the solution, help your baby sleep through the night in as little as 7 days, and then you can put the rest as a sub-headline. So you can break it up, or you can keep it together, but for ease of reading, it's good to kind of break it up. It's easier on the eyes. But, I mean, if it was like the last example, if you are truly fed up with sleepless nights, I mean, dang, people will read on. And that's the key for a headline, is not to sell or anything. It's to force the reader to keep on reading the next sentence, and each sentence should, quote unquote, force the reader to keep on reading. Yeah, your headline is your hook into your main copy. So that's the whole point. It's supposed to literally hook them and reel them in. Okay, moving on. Subheadlines. Subheadlines are sort of mini versions of headlines. What you actually do is you scatter them throughout your copy, and the main purpose is to draw your eyes to important sections of the copy. So, for example, if you're introducing a new concept or a new idea, you might want to insert a subheadline. Sometimes if your text gets really long, it helps to break up longer text. And I always include it to add emphasis of certain points. And also, when you have subheadlines throughout your piece, it also makes your whole copy a lot more readable. It's more user-friendly. And the other thing that I find as well, it helps you build momentum in copy. One of the things that I find, because I use a piece of software called ClickTail, and what it does is it produces a heat map of where people click on a page. And you'll actually find, by using that piece of software, there's a flurry of clicking activity
or reading activity based, it will always be around the headline, and then you will find it around the subheadlines and the benefits. So, as long as it's compelling enough and using the sort of same formula as what you're doing for the headlines, and you're interspersing this throughout your copy, it will make your copy overall much more compelling, and it will draw your prospect in further. Okay. One thing I will say is don't put it in for the sake of it, because otherwise it loses impact. The whole point is it's there for a specific reason, and that is to pull your prospect in even further. Okay, your body copy. Your body copy is your main copy. It's, you need to keep simple rules that you need to sort of keep in mind. You need to keep your copy engaging and interesting. I like adding in stories. If they're personal anecdotes, they usually work really well. Personal stories work extremely well. But you need to keep it flowing from one paragraph to the next. Keep your sentences rather small. If you have more than 2 sentences per paragraph, it's too big. You need to break them up. Keep your paragraphs very short, and using the same rule as before, break up your text with subheadlines. One thing that I always do when I'm writing copy myself, sometimes when I get into the flow of it, I kind of just let it all out onto the page, and then I will always go back and then edit it down. It's actually a really good way of writing your copy without interrupting your flow. Don't waffle, you need to cut to the chase, but always leave the editing right to the end. So don't write something and think, that doesn't sound quite right, and because what it'll do is actually stop your train of thought. So just keep writing, just keep going, and then go back over it and then edit it down. Never be vague, and always, like I said about the headlines and the subheadlines, always quantify wherever possible. Body copy, the whole point of body copy really is, it's giving more details. It's adding the meat to the skeleton, if you like. But it has to be just as compelling as the headline and your subheadlines for people to keep reading. If you start waffling on about boring stories, nobody's gonna bother. There's been a debate recently about whether long copy outperforms short copy, and it's still, I personally think that copy needs to be as long as it needs to be. But if you're putting in things for the sake of putting them in, you will actually lose your prospects. So maybe a shorter copy is better. Okay. During your copy, you need to outline the problem. Okay, so what are the main problems that the prospect is facing? And always think in terms of end consequences to the problem. What's keeping them awake at night? And a good way to sort of do that is, you can add in your bullets as well. So for example, if the actual problem that the person is having is not enough money and your product actually helps solve that, the consequences of that problem are debt, arrears on bill payments, you could lose your house, you're struggling to survive, you can't give children their necessities. You're looking at the end consequences of that particular problem. So it's not just the fact that you don't have enough money, it's the fact that you can't feed your children. And always try and connect it emotionally wherever you can, because it makes your copy a lot more powerful. When you've done that, you can introduce the solution. Your solution should always solve the biggest problem or frustration of the prospect. Now, one thing that I will say to you, don't just make your copy focusing on all of the benefits of your product. What you also need to include is, try and include the pain and the frustration that the prospect is feeling, and remind them. It's like pushing their hot buttons. You need to remind them of that constantly, because people will go to great lengths to avoid pain. Okay, so always play on that. Pleasure in itself, it's not a strong enough motivator to make decision. And a good example here would be weight loss. If you tell somebody, lose weight and you're going to look, really fantastic and you'll be able to wear whatever clothes you want, that in itself is not a powerful enough motivator. But if you say to them that, if you don't lose weight, you're going to have a heart attack and you're going to die before the age of 35, trust me, that will really make them sit up and listen. So, benefits. Copy without benefits may as well be binned. I've seen so many pieces of copy which doesn't even spell out the benefits. In fact, just the other day, and I've got it right in front of me, I got this 10-page sales letter, a direct mail piece, through the door. It was this huge thing trying to sell this, it was a money-making product, and it was a home study course, and there were absolutely no benefits listed anywhere. And I just thought, straight away, that needs to be binned, or it needs to be totally rewritten.
Let me interrupt for a second here for the benefit of those with limited English abilities.
Okay.
What the heck does binned mean?
Binned? Oh, you put it in the bin. Put it in the garbage. Trash.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I thought it was that, but I wanted to make sure.
No, it's a UK term. So yeah, we're familiar with the word binned. I think you guys are more familiar with trashed. So
yeah.
It's the same thing. Prospects don't actually care about you or how great you are. I've seen this so many times in copy. Oh, we've been in business for 30 years. We serve X amount of people. You know, nobody actually cares. Yeah, what they actually care about is how they can benefit from your product or your service. So if you're writing the copy, always think like your target prospect and think, what's in it for me? Okay? And the best way to do this is to actually distinguish between a feature and a benefit. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong. A feature is a description or an attribute of what a product does. So it's, for example, you know, on a lamp, you might have a dimmer switch on a lamp or something. That's a feature, okay? But a benefit is how the benefits, how the feature actually benefits you or changes your life. So using the lamp, example that I've just given you, the dimmer switch, well, you know, what's the main benefit of that? Well, you can adjust your light according to how, according to the mood that you're in. You know, sometimes you want it really bright, sometimes you want it really low. So that's an actual benefit. So always, you know, talk about your benefits. And there is actually a formula for this. So, you know, we'll talk about this in a bit more detail. Always write the benefits as bullet points, because it makes it easier to read and digest, and it also makes it very easy to find in your copy. If you have particularly long copy, what people will tend to do, the general way that they read is they will read your headline, they'll read the first couple of paragraphs, they'll skip through to the subheadlines, and then they'll skip completely past everything else and they'll go straight to the benefits. This is how people usually read, okay? So the formula for a great bullet is you take your feature and then you add the advantages of that particular feature, then you plus the benefit of the benefit equals a great bullet. Now what does that mean? What does that mean? When you have a benefit, you always need to think of the benefit of the benefit. So it's layering benefits as much as you can. The world's top copywriters, Dan Kennedy, Clayton Makepeace, they all suggest this particular strategy, and I'm going to give you an example of that. So we'll move on to the next slide. So for example, we've got a face cream, and in it we have a sun protection factor of 15. Okay, so that's the feature. Okay, now we need to add in the advantage of that feature. So the advantage of that feature is that it helps protect your skin against the sun. So what is the benefit of that particular advantage? So we move on and we say to protect against the sun and prevent premature aging, sun damage and pigmentation. Okay, so that in itself is actually a pretty, you know, good benefit. Of course, you know, if you want your skin to look good, you'd want to avoid these things. However, can you actually even layer on even more benefits? What's the end benefit of all of that? Yeah. So, you know, we're building this up now to protect against the sun and prevent premature aging, sun damage, and pigmentation, so you look younger. Okay. So, you know, that's the end benefit. And, you know, we can actually spice up the actual bullet point itself now. So even though that's your basic bullet point, and a good way of spicing them up is to, you know, highlight certain pieces of text, you know, maybe exaggerate certain words, make them appear a lot more compelling. So I've actually rewritten this as SPF 15 protects against the sun, preventing premature aging, sun damage and pigmentation, knocking years off so you look younger than your age for years to come. So that's a lot more powerful than just saying it's got SPF 15 in it, which doesn't really tell you much. It's just a feature. Okay, your price and your guarantee. Never introduce the price without justifying the end benefits. This is really important, because if you just have a piece of copy and then you stick the price in at the end, it's not really that powerful. However, if you are explaining or justifying the end benefit, so you're saying, spend this much on this to help you achieve this. So it's, do this and you get this. It's like X and Y kind of thing. So if you've got a product which is helping you to make more money, don't just say, oh, it's $7 to buy this product. You're actually saying it's $7 to have a life of financial freedom. Or, always think of the end benefit. And it's a lot more compelling and it's a lot more powerful than just mentioning the price on its own. What I will say to you about price is always test different price points, even for smaller products. Larger price points require more justifying. For example, you might think you might have to talk about your competitors and how you differ from your competitors, especially if you've got a very expensive product. I did a piece of copy for a client and she was selling a course for $997. Obviously, if somebody's going to want to part with that much cash, they want to know absolutely the minutest detail of what they're actually getting for that particular amount of money. That sales page took me nearly 40 hours of work and it ended up being 18 pages long, and she was absolutely thrilled with it. But if that had been a smaller product, maybe, a $7 price point, I might have only written maybe, 2-3 sides of copy. But you always do need to test the price points, because sometimes if you put a price too low, it can cheapen the value of your product and you don't get enough sales. If it's too high, then it will put people off. But, if it's a sort of mid-price range, they'll think, oh, well, it's not cheap enough so that people are suspecting the quality of the product, but it's not expensive enough to put people off from buying it. Now, a word about guarantees. As a general rule of thumb, longer guarantees are actually proven to have a lower refund rate. So always avoid short guarantees because they do actually have a high return rate. So if you have a product or a service, avoid 30 days if you can. That's because people have it on their mind that I've only got 30 days in which to try this out, and you're much more likely to get refunds. If, however, you have a long refund, say like 90-day policy, people become, they become complacent and they become relaxed, and sometimes they become lazy as well. So, they'll misplace the receipt, or they can't even be bothered, looking for it. They don't know where they've put it. So this is actually a tested strategy. So the longer you guarantee, the more sort of it's reassuring your prospect, and it's actually giving you an increased response rate as well.
Let me interject here for a second.
Yeah.
I wanted to give for some of my products a 1-year guarantee.
Yeah.
And because that's exactly what I learned, that if you give a longer term guarantee, then sales go up, and then often people become, as you said, complacent, and they might forget about it. And let's face it, you put in lots of work in a product, and people sometimes buy it and they want to cancel it by the end of the 30 days or want to refund. But if you give a 1 year or 6 months, they say, okay, I have time, so
to go through it properly.
Forget to get that refund, and often some people will just copy it and ask for a refund. So but anyway, it's my merchant service provider did not allow me to provide a 1-year service. So they have this compliance tests every year, and when they saw the 1-year guarantee on my website, they made me change it into a 90-day because they did not allow me to do that. But
it's a shame, really.
But this is a secret that you don't have to know. I mean, if you don't have a merchant service provider who limits you, then I highly suggest long guarantees, because in almost 10 years I got like I gave 2. Well, no, I'm lying. Maybe I gave about 5 refunds in 10 years. So it's really rare that if you provide a good product, it's really rare that people will ask for a refund. And,
you'll always get your serial refund.
Same for my coaching. I give 90 days money back guarantee. Never, 0%. Nobody ever asks for a refund.
Yeah, so. I mean, as long as people are getting value for their money, they're not bothered about refunds. I mean, there'll always be one. They'll read it and, straight through, and they'll ask for they'll keep the copy and they'll still ask for a refund. You can't do anything about those type of people, but, in general, people are more honest than that, and, they respond really well, so always worth bearing in mind. A long guarantee does actually work really well. Okay, your final sort of part of your sales copy would be a strong call to action. So what you actually need to do is you actually need to tell the prospect exactly what to do next. If you want people to call you, actually say to them, pick up the phone and call me on this number, and put the number in. If it's by email, email me now at, and then include your email. If you want them to click on a particular button, you need to tell them, click the buy now button now. Now, here's the interesting thing. If you don't ask for the sale, you won't actually get it. Okay. Now, I know that seems so silly, but this is really true. Just a few weeks ago, I actually critiqued somebody's copy, and he'd done a really good job of writing the copy. There wasn't much to criticize on his copy, but there was absolutely no call to action at all. Anyway, and I said to him, the first thing I said to him was, you haven't actually asked for the sale. And he was laughing his head off. He goes, I put hours and hours into this copy and I can't believe I forgot to add that in. But that did actually work. It did the trick. People are lazy. If you don't tell them what to do, they're not actually going to do it. And you know that saying, if you don't ask, you don't get. So it's definitely true in this case. But when you actually include your strong call to action, you need to reiterate the main problem, okay? So, for example, we're going back to the sleeping guide that I talked about earlier. If you want people to buy, I'd say something like click on the buy now button and end the misery of sleepless nights once and for all. And then always tell them the biggest benefit of your solution is just sort of basically what you're doing is you're recapping whatever you've put in your copy. Always do a recap and then ask for the sale again. So I would always ask for the sale twice. This is sort of standard practice. So when you're asking for, you have a sales letter, it's several pages long, you'll actually notice on many sales letters, they will have, the buy it now button placed on several places on the page. And it's there for purpose, because sometimes people will read a certain piece of your copy and it will connect with them, and then they'll hit on that, call to action button straight away. Other times, a person needs a bit more persuading. They have to get right to the bottom before they make their mind up. So, do bear that in mind. And if you want to know more, just moving on the others, I've actually released a product called Killer Conversion Secrets. And what I do in this guide, it's quite an in-depth guide. There's about 63 pages, I think. I actually discuss all of these elements in detail, with loads of examples in there of how you can actually put all these things together. I take a really close look at the entire sales funnel, and included in that product is lots of tips on writing your own squeeze pages, your sales letters, how to do your autoresponders, talking about your lists, elements of marketing, lots of examples, and you can get it now for just $27. And what you need to do is you need to go to www.arfarights.com/killer-conversion-secrets.html. I only just got that page up today, but I promise you guys, it will really improve your copy no end. And if you guys have any problems or you've got any, my details are in the back of that as well, so you can always contact me if you have any, problems at all. But that's the end of our short presentation, and I hope you guys got a lot of value from that.
All right, thank you, Arfa. That was really great.
No problem.
I couldn't have put it better in myself, so thank you for it.
No, thank you for having me.
And I've seen I don't know, about a dozen or 24 samples of Arfa's writing. She sent me a ton of stuff, and I referred some business to her. Yeah. And she's really a great copywriter. And some of you might ask, then why is she in this program if she's so successful, right? When you are a copywriter, you spend the whole day writing, and after a while your arm hurts from writing, and so she's transitioning. She wants to transition into coaching and some other
consulting,
info marketing, and that kind of cool stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what we are working on with Arfa.
Yeah.
And yes, I highly recommend her product and her services as well.